If I only knew then what I knew now. That's what a lot of attorneys say. I'm on lunch, man. Okay, give me a break. The practice of law is hard. It looks easy. People make it seem prestigious and everything, and I guess to a certain extent it is. It's just like any other business, I guess. When you start off, you have no knowledge about all this stuff around you. I ran into a young attorney last week at court, and he was like, man, I don't even know how much to charge. I might not say that clearly because I got stuff in my mouth. He didn't even know how much to charge people. And they're telling us that law school prepares you for coming out here in the real world. Well, that's debatable. One thing I've learned is that you better try to find a real mentor, like somebody who doesn't mind taking you under their wing and showing you the ropes. Having a mentor certainly speeds up the learning curve, because a lot of the dumb mistakes are the things that lawyers without mentors do. You're probably not going to do those because somebody else is going to tell you, don't do that. That's a bad idea. Don't do that. That's 3 to 9. As Dave Chappelle would say. One reason why I did this vlog is so that it helps with my diction. It allows you to be critical of yourself. And I am my biggest critic. So, I don't know. That's a little snippet I thought I'd share. So a few things I try to do every day. I try to do at least 3 or 4 things related to my cases, whether it's getting some paperwork out or getting something pushed out or getting something in. I try to read at least about 2 to 3 hours if I can, and I try to do my vlog. I think the thing is that whatever you want to do, you just got to put your mind to it and do it. Wake up every day, focus on that. I'm looking at truck driving schools right now. I just don't know when I'll have the time to get it done. But I'm seriously considering going to truck driving school. The personal injury tip for today is that if you're involved in a car wreck, probably one of the worst things you can do is get on the phone with the claims adjuster for the other insurance company and just go ahead and give a flat out statement to them. Even if you aren't in the wrong, even if you haven't done anything, what they're going to do is they're going to try to pressure you into settling the case right there, offering you a little bit of money to make you go away, because that claims adjuster knows that you're going to feel a lot worse tomorrow or the day after, and what they want to do is try to limit the loss or limit the payout of the insurance company that they work for. So my suggestion would always be that you call an attorney. It doesn't have to be me, but call an attorney that focuses on car accidents and personal injury law. Don't just call anybody unless you really know them. Quite honestly, a lot of times you'll see the claims adjusters' attitudes will completely change once they realize that they're not going to be able to just close this case out and get you to sign on the dotted line. Alrighty, I don't know if you can see me. Hopefully this is a little clearer. I am not in my usual conference room to do this because someone else was using it at the time, so I had to come out here and jump on this board. So hopefully you can see this. This is part 2 of cargo securement. Today we're going to talk about securement systems as it relates to truck accident law. So if you're a truck accident lawyer like me and you're looking at a cargo securement case, if you come to me as a client, you may be thinking, you know, some guy had some stuff on the back of his truck and it fell off and tore up my car, hurt me really badly. Well, what are the things that you're going to look at? I mean, how do you really even know if I have a case or not in this type of particular situation? Or, hey, I'm a truck driver and I was driving behind another tractor trailer and the guy didn't secure his materials like he needed to, or she didn't secure her materials like she needed to, and you know, I was injured because of that. What would you look at if you were the lawyer in that particular case? Well, this is some of the things that I will look at. This is not necessarily all of them. Like I said, this is a general basic overview of securement systems. So when I present this stuff, this is not all encompassing. There are exceptions in all of these and different little rules and caveats. So I wouldn't look at this and think, oh, you know, now I know truck accident law, because it's much more complicated than this for sure. But I want to get started with cargo securement devices. And 393.102 or 49 CFR 393.102 is kind of like the area of law that everyone kind of focuses on or looks at, but really it translates over to 104, which is kind of like the thing that tells you about braking strength and performance criteria and things of that nature. So when it comes to the cargo securement device, you remember I told you I used to work at a home improvement store, and I would put the lumber, seasoned lumber, dressed lumber and stuff on the trucks and whatnot and unload it. So the truckers always had different types of devices that would strap down the lumber, whether it was a direct tie down or indirect tie down, they would have that stuff on there. And what they have to do as a truck driver, they must ensure that the items that they use for securing the cargo is in proper working order. That's a statute, that's in law. It must be in proper working order. The other thing is they have to continually inspect to make sure there are no cracks or cuts in any of the materials that they're using to tie things down. Okay? I mean, that seems like common sense, but you know, I mean, it is what it is. It needs to be in there because, you know, if it wasn't in there, certain people wouldn't do it. The blocks and chocks and shoring bars, you know, blocks and chocks are basically like the things that stop movement. You know, not dunnage, but like I said, items that are basically put around the cargo to ensure that it doesn't move. They have to make sure that stuff actually works, that it won't crack or break if you put another piece of cargo on top of it. They must conform to specific manufacturing assembly standards. When I'm talking about that, what I'm talking about is the tie-down assembly. There are certain standards for each type of tie-down that vary, and there are different manufacturing standards that pretty much promulgate or tell you exactly how they should be using this material and what they should be abiding by. So, like for example, tie downs cannot contain knots. Like if it's cordage, those types of things cannot contain knots and may require edge protection. Edge protection is basically it's not, how can I put this? It's not around the rub rails, but edge protection is stuff that you put around, dunnage that you put around the cargo to ensure not around the cargo, but around the tie downs to ensure that it's not abrased or cut anyhow. Somehow it won't go down the road and rub up against something and then just cut the cord or cut the tie down and it just flies all over the highway. So some, like I said, some require edge protection. And I could go into rub rails and all that type of stuff, but I'm not going to do that right now. But I do want to, like I said, we talked yesterday about cargo securement and we talked briefly about G-force and braking strength. And like I said before, that's just when, depending on which direction a truck is moving, there is a certain amount of force of gravity that the cargo must be able to stand up to, or the tie downs must be able to stand up to. And so, like I said yesterday, forward force is 80%, rearward force is 50%, lateral force is 50%, upwards force is 20%. So, I mean, like I said, we covered that yesterday. So I really wanted to talk about what exactly is a securing device. That's probably where I should have started from the beginning. But a securing device is any device specifically manufactured to attach or secure cargo to a vehicle or a trailer. So that can be a variety of things. It can be like the plastic netting that you see. It can be, like I said, the cords. It can be steel strapping. It can be chains. It can be a number of different things, but those are all the things that are used to tie down cargo, whether it's directly or indirectly. And speaking of direct and indirect tie downs, a direct tie down is basically a tie down that is connected to the cargo and then connected to like a rub rail or an anchor point somewhere on the bed of the truck. Okay. An indirect tie down is any type of tie down that will connect to an anchor point or someplace on the truck, and then it will go either over it or through it or possibly under it, but I don't see how it can really go under it. So it usually will go over it or through it somehow and then connect to another anchor point on the other side. Seems like, I mean, that's pretty common sense. So a tie down is defined as a combination of securing devices that form an assembly that, number one, it attaches to the cargo or restrains the cargo, and it attaches to an anchor point or attaches to an anchor point. So, like I said, if it attaches to the cargo to restrain or restrains the cargo, then it's going to be a direct tie down. If it attaches to an anchor point, well, it can still be, I guess, either way, they can still be direct or indirect, because no matter how you put it, both tie downs are going to attach to some anchor point or some point on the truck to keep it down. But the main difference is that a direct tie down is going to attach directly to the cargo. All right. So, very briefly, I talked yesterday about an out of service criteria and what that basically is. It's like the death knell for any type of trucker or motor carrier, in the sense that if you receive one of those letters, you are like stagnant. You can't even drive home. You can't drive anywhere. You can't move that truck. So there's a particular agency that publishes information that determines what they must abide by when it determines a tie down. And if they are not abiding by the CVSA's criteria as far as what is a tie down, then they may be placed out of service until that can be corrected or fixed. A driver must properly secure the load in anticipation of movement on the road. So when they're putting together the tie down on the truck, they have to anticipate the fact that, well, if I put this bed of lumber up here and I know I'm going to turn this way or turn that way, I have to tie it down with a certain grade or a certain type of tie down in order to make sure it doesn't move off the back of that truck. Okay? So we're not going to go into front end structures. We could talk about how like the header board, the bulkhead, and all that stuff can kind of be used to immobilize materials from moving on the bed of the truck, but I didn't really want to go into that. I don't think that's necessary, because like I said before, I'm just trying to give you a general overview. Don't look at something like this and think that, you know, this is all encompassing, because it's much more complicated than this. As I said before, this is why every car accident lawyer cannot do truck accidents, because it is an area all into itself. There are so many more rules. It has its own book or a few books that, you know, you have to read through and whatnot. And it's not something that I would say can be mastered in, you know, a few months. It takes some time to become really good at this stuff and to know what to look for when you're dealing with one of these heavy machinery types of wrecks. But one thing that I did want to bring up was that the front head structure, or the cab and whatnot, the front head structure, we'll say that, it can have no penetration resistance. I mean, well, I'm sorry, I phrased that wrong. It can have no aperture or window structure that is capable of penetration. Okay, it must be capable it must be capable of handling a deceleration rate of 20 feet per second. And that's just to protect the driver, protect the trucker. I mean, protect the public as well, but definitely protect the trucker. I don't know if you've ever looked at on Instagram or any those Facebook videos where they show, a truck driver driving logs down the street on a pole trailer and stopping real fast, and then the logs or whatnot shooting through the cab, or shooting through the trailer itself. So something to think about. The last thing I wanted to kind of go into was the working load limit. Now this is, like I said, this stuff it's nothing like car accident law. I mean, it is totally its own animal. I don't know if you can see up here. Maybe I can try to adjust this real quick. Let me see. Okay, yeah, maybe you can see that. Maybe that'll help a bit. Okay, so I drew a kind of a brief animation of, an example of the working load limit. And what you have to understand about that is when a truck driver is transporting cargo, what they're looking at when they're talking about the working load limit, they're talking about the tie downs and compared to the weight of the actual cargo that they're moving. So depending on what type of tie down is used, you have to calculate that against the actual weight of the cargo, and it will determine or tell you how many tie downs or what type of tie down, not necessarily what type of tie downs, because you have to figure that out on your own to a certain extent, but it will tell you the weight of how many tie downs you have to use if you have a certain weight limit. So I'll give you an example. Okay, so and like I said, this isn't a total thing because additional tie down requirements can depend on the length of the cargo and the weight. So for example, if it's like 5 feet long, there's a certain amount of tie downs you have to use. If it's 10 feet long, there's a certain amount of tie downs you have to use. So you can't look at this and think, oh, well, I know this code now, because that's not necessarily true. But what I will do is give you an example of calculating working load limit. So for example, let's say that we have a cargo weight of 20,000 pounds. Okay, the working load limit of each strap that we use has 2,000 pounds. Okay, so if we're employing an indirect tie down method, an indirect tie down method will allow you to use 100% weight of every strap. So you can use this 2,000 pounds for each strap that you use. Now, in order to determine how many tie downs you need to use, you already know that the securement system must be half of the cargo weight on indirect tie down methods. So you can use half of the cargo weight. The cargo weight is 20,000 pounds. You can use half of that, which would be 10,000, and then you're going to divide that by the weight. by the value of the straps that you're going to use. So it's 2,000. It's 10 divided by 2,000, and it gives you 5 indirect tie downs that must be used in order to secure that 20,000 pounds on the back of that truck. So one last thing I want to address, and that's inspection requirements, because I think that this is very vital, at least for truckers to understand as no one else. And that's when you go pick up your cargo, it is completely on you to raise a fuss at the time of that pre-trip inspection about this cargo not being properly secured, because the carrier that is providing you the inadequate materials, it's their duty at that time to tell you it's their duty along with yours to make sure that that cargo is secured, okay, during the pre-trip inspection. But at the time after you leave that facility and you're on the road, or you're checking the cargo every 3 hours for the straps and whatnot, 50 miles from from the place that you originally were at, it's completely on you. So that's something to think about. You know, you don't necessarily want to have all that blame on yourself if you're out here on the road and you saw at the very beginning that, hey, this guy didn't put the lumber or whatnot on the back of this bed how I needed it to be. Because they should be following whatever you want them to do, because you're the one that has to transport it, you know, 1,000 miles or wherever you're going to take it. So that's it for this part 2 of cargo securement and securement systems. And this wraps up today's vlog.